Hello guys, today we're going to talk about very difficult topic. I actually wanted to talk about it like a long time ago and I was thinking, but I couldn't find like the reason to talk about it. And thankfully, today the reason it's obviously thankfully because I can talk about it, but unfortunately, Lionel Messi has to leave Barcelona. It's very heartbreaking. I'm sure most of you who are fans of football or whatever you want to call it, soccer, football, you have seen this heartbreaking video where Lionel Messi is crying, and it is so obvious he doesn't want to leave. He maybe saw that coming, but he was not prepared for it. He, as I assume, didn't believe that that would happen. And all of those characteristics of an event in psychology of stock market, which is very interesting. I absolutely love psychology of stock market because it so much resembles real life. I believe that this type of event, Lionel Messi leaving Barcelona, is called Black Swan. Why is this event a black swan, right? Because obviously in a million years he wouldn't believe that this was gonna happen, right? This is something that was unpredictable. Obviously COVID-19 wasn't predictable, and the situation with the financial situations of clubs was like you couldn't predict it because no one could predict COVID-19. COVID-19 itself is a black swan in the stock market. So obviously this is something that is absolutely unexpected. This event, no one could. I think fans, a lot of even now, still can't believe that this is actually happening. But it is. It is something that I believe. This is my personal theory. Those types of events is what shapes our life, right? These are usually the events that we have little or no control over, right? Obviously, it matters how we behave and what we do in between those events, right? In between those black swans, or I don't know what to call white swans, because white swans are really common. Do you guys realize why it's called black swan? Because black swans are rare, and COVID-19, Great Depression, to crisis of 2008, it's very, very uncommon event. So that's why it's called black swan. But those good events and bad events is what shapes our lives. We have, as I've said, little or no control over it, but it's hugely important how we react to those events, right? And speaking of Lionel Messi, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce his name. One very, very important thing to do in his situation is to go through that trauma, I would even say. And obviously, if you're interested in psychology, you know that there are several stages of grief, exactly 5, and I'm gonna read all of them out loud. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. The sooner he goes through all the stages, the better it is going to be for him. The sooner he grieves this situation, the sooner he gets to that level of acceptance, right, of the situation, the better it is going to be for him. Because a lot of times when something like that, like big in our life happens, where it really throws off our routine, which is hugely important for him. He's like this, one of those very stable guy. He is probably the guy who goes to the same type of restaurant, his favorite restaurants for years and years and years. He plays for the same club. He has the same wife for a very long period of time. So any type of change in his routine is a hugely traumatic event for him, right? And sometimes when you're in the midst of that situation, right, where situation of a black swan, I'm talking about, where all of a sudden your routine is screwed over. You have to have this different life that you maybe didn't see for yourself or didn't want for yourself, right? But it has happened because, as I've said, you have no control over that situation. sometimes a person can experience derealization where he's like all of a sudden pops into where, I don't know, maybe you have felt that, where you sometimes you pop into your body, you were wondering, your mind was wandering, and then you pop into your body and you're like, oh my gosh, where am I? Is this really happening? I actually remember one of the interviews of Israel Adesanya. This is a UFC fighter. I'm not sure if soccer fans are a lot of soccer fans are fans of UFC, but I remember Israel Adesanya was talking about how he was fighting, I don't remember exactly against who, but at one point he like popped into his body and he was like, oh my gosh, I'm fighting this person who I admired as a teenager and stuff like that. So that is also obviously, that situation was not normal to his routine. This is something like almost like an out of body experience, but obviously in the case of Israel Adesanya, it also is quote unquote traumatic, because sometimes even great events can be traumatic, right? Because anything that is out of ordinary is stressful. There's actually a scale in psychology. They've made this scale of stress, and actually if you marry someone, which seems to be sounds like a good event, right? Because it's like a great event, right? You are about to spend the rest of your life with the love of your life. But if we look on the scale of stress, it is very high up there because it's a great change in your life. So even good events are stressful and can even be traumatic because you are out of your everyday routine and you have to change your mindset, your routine, what you're used to, right? But especially something like this, like something where you had to leave your favorite club, you were ready for a 50% salary cut, you were ready, that means basically he was ready for anything in order to stay in Barcelona. But unfortunately, the way things played out to be is that he had to leave Barcelona, right? So he might experience those moments of derealization, and in those moments, obviously, his family is important because that's something that is constant. What could also be important is to keep his routine, right? Like whatever his routine is, and I mean, obviously we can guess what his routine is. It's like practice. His wife, his kids, is something that is still gonna stay constant in his life. So that's what I believe he should really lean on in this very difficult and tumultuous time in his life, which from outside cannot sometimes can seem as not that big of a deal, right? He's this rich person, but in terms of psychology and psychological distress, it is not really. It doesn't matter how much money you have if you are experiencing something very traumatic to the point where you're experiencing panic attacks, derealization, and stuff like that. And I don't know whether he does experience those things. And I think I mentioned it, but I want to mention it again. The sooner he goes through all those 5 stages of grief, and the sooner he gets to that level of acceptance, right, the better his mental and psychological state of mind will be. And honestly, I am not a huge believer in psychologists unless those psychologists are Cus D'Amato, who was Mike Tyson's coach, or I don't know who else. Khabib Nurmagomedov's dad, who's also unfortunately dead at the moment, and probably forever will be. Of course, he will be, at least on Earth, as far as I know. That's so stupid. I mean, Khabib Nurmagomedov's dad is dead. Unfortunately, he was a great psychologist. Khabib wouldn't be who he is. So what I wanted to say is that I'm not a believer in psychologists, right? But in this situation, in this particular situation, I think a good psychologist, not even someone like Habib's father, Abdul Manap, his name was, or like Kazdamara, like not even the greatest psychologist, is going to be beneficial, because this event that he goes through is an event that a lot of people go through, but just in different form. It could be divorce, it could be death of a close person, it could be whatever change we're talking about. It could even be leaving your job or getting fired from your job. So what I want to say is that if you have this great psychologist, or at least good psychologist, who helps you digest these types of situations, where it is a great change in your life and you have to somehow go through it and adapt is a really good word. If you're not able to adapt quickly to changing circumstances, then it is this life and sport is going to be really hard, especially if you're planning to have this very, very long career. There's going to be a time where you have to adapt. There is going to be a time where you have to be very stable and keep going and be committed to a club, to a sport, to, I don't know, coaches, right? But sometimes, whether you want it or not, things are going to change and it's going to be stressful. And the things that change the situation, I call black swans, a lot of times are unpredictable. A lot of times this is not what you wanted for yourself, or you think that this is something you don't want for yourself, but we will see how the situation is going to turn out. I also believe that a great belief system that anything that happens for your good, right? For anything, basically having this mindset that belief system that anything that, I don't know, God does or universe does is for your good, is for your benefit. If you have that sort of belief system, that core belief, it's also going to be beneficial, and it's also going to help you, and it's also going to is also going to allow you to adapt easier to a situation. Unlike if you think that, if you're trying to resist the situation, right? So if you're trying to resist the situation, it is going to be so much harder to adapt to new circumstances, to accept, to go through 5 stages of grief. But as I've said, if you have this belief system, this is for my good, this is going to make my life, this event is going to benefit me in the end, whether I see this benefit right now or not, having this faith is very, very beneficial for your psychological state of mind and for your life overall. Thank you so much for watching this video until the end. I hope I'll see you in my next video. So don't forget to click the like button, click all the buttons, and I'll see you in the next one.